Okay, now we're going to come to the telephoto. Telephoto lens is used for taking pictures of things that are far away, birds, surfers, things that are far away and you can't actually physically get closer. So if something's up in the sky, chances are low you can get very close to it. If something's way far into the water, chances are relatively low you can get closer to it. This allows you to zoom really far away and take a picture of something that's really, really, really far away. And zoom is the wrong word here because there are telephoto lenses that are fixed. They come at 300 millimeters, let's say, and it'll only take good shots of things that are 300 millimeters away. So if something is really close to you, the telephoto won't actually be able to take a picture of it. My telephoto lens is also zoom instead of fixed. It's partly because it was much, much cheaper. If you look here, you'll see it's a 70 to 200. This is a very expensive lens, even as it is, and it was a birthday present. I would have never been able to buy it on my own. And as you can see, it's very large. And it will take pretty good photos. It's actually a very fancy, nice lens. The one thing that I don't like about it, which I knew at the time I was buying it, but I didn't have a choice, is that it's actually the lowest aperture this will go to is pretty high. And I don't know why it doesn't state on the lens, but it's, if I remember correctly, it's 4.5 to 5.6, which means, and if I'm zoomed all the way out, which is a 70 in this lens, then I can lower my aperture all the way to 4.5, and if I'm zoomed all the way in, which is a 200 in this lens, then my aperture, the lowest aperture I can have is a 5.6, which is actually not very low. 5.6 is pretty high, and it doesn't allow for low light situations. Thankfully, most of the times I've used it, which is out in the water, up in the sky. I live in California, I have a lot of light, so it hasn't been a big problem. And I have looked into buying a version of this that had lower aperture. The problem is if you want to be able to do lower aperture, it turns out that the lens ends up having more glass in it, which makes the lens really heavy. And as it is, this lens is actually quite heavy, so I have a very bad back and I didn't want to invest in a lens that would be 4 times the price and a lot more heavy, a lot heavier, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to use it. As it is, I really don't use this lens as much as I thought I would. Another example of something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, I thought it would be ultra cool to have a telephoto. I think it's one of the most common lenses, second lenses people tend to want, because it seems like, ooh, wouldn't I always want to take pictures of things that are really far away? It turns out you don't. Really, you don't. It's relatively rare that you want something this fancy, or you need to spend, over $1,000 or close to $1,000 that you would to be able to get a good telephoto. I don't think it's worth it. I do use this lens. Actually, to be honest, the most common use I've had for this lens, besides surfers when I used to live in San Diego, is at the zoo. Because at the zoo, the animals are kind of far away, and if I want a really close-up shot of an animal, I can't get close. So this allows me to get closer to the animals without moving, which is what I would want. But all in all, honestly, I use this lens 10, 20 times a year at most, and that's not that much. I take pictures every single day, so considering I could be using it like 400 times a year, I do it maybe 10, 20, that's not necessarily worth the large amount of money I spent on it, or somebody else spent on it for me. But anyway, this is what a telephoto is. It takes pictures of things that are far away in a good way. So it's in a good way, as in they're close, or they will be able to fill the frame, or they're not going to look like they're really far away when the picture comes out. If you have any questions about telephoto lenses, feel free to leave me a message. I'll be happy to answer it. And I will try and post examples of every one of these lenses and the pictures I've taken with them, so you can see what they look like a little bit. Have a great day.